Afternoon. I want to tell you about the power of using impact frameworks when you're pitching your impact startup. When I say impact, what I mean by that is any startup, any venture that's having a positive impact in the world. That doesn't necessarily mean charitable. What we're talking about there is anything that sits in that broad tech for good, sustainability, clean tech, climate tech, anything that where we can assess the purpose and the impact of that business beyond merely a profit metric. And the reason that's important is because an increasing number of investors are entering these spaces, an increasing number of funds are launching with an increasing amount of capital able to deploy. But in the same way that investors will look at financial opportunities, will look at any startup and say, what is the financial return? Many funds now operate and use an impact orientated assessment and diligence framework. One great example of that is someone say like double DBL partners, double bottom line partners in San Francisco, who are one of the earliest funds that would use that double bottom line, i.e. the first bottom line is profit, the second one being around purpose. And that's even extended to concepts like the triple bottom line of people, planet, and profit. And so if funds are using and investors are using those metrics, the way that we can increase our chances of getting funded and get to a great outcome by having the right investors aligned behind us is by demonstrating the non-financial impact that your venture can have. Often startups have got these great ideas, but they're not specific enough. They're not using some of those frameworks to their advantage. And so in the same way, you'd be leaving value, you'd be missing an opportunity if you weren't being really clear with your financials. The same can be true here with your impact metrics. And so what I want to do today is just use the 5 dimensions of impact to really quickly explain how that works. So the 5 dimensions of impact, and hopefully you can see the screen here, is a framework developed by the Impact Management Project, which itself has been developed through a group of consultants and impact specialists worldwide. And broadly, they split impact into these 3 categories of A, B, C. Now, we won't go into these in details, but I just want to demonstrate the sort of frameworks that are out there. Act to avoid harm. Often this could be any company that has any sort of footprint, but is trying to do less and avoid harm. In theory, a minerals or a mining company could be trying to avoid harm. And therefore, if you were to be a sustainable company like that, oil, etc., which I appreciate many of you will say will be laughable, the question is, how would they do that by avoiding harm? That's a legitimate question that those boards will grapple with. The benefit stakeholders piece is one where you could just be any company, but you're trying to benefit stakeholders. So, for example, are you trying to give a living wage to your employees? Are you trying to buy sustainably, etc.? You're not necessarily contributing to a solution. You could be selling widgets or staples or whatever, but you are trying to benefit your stakeholders. And the final bucket, which is where I believe most of the impact ventures are in, is that contribute to solutions, the C. We want to, as the slide says here, we want to tackle malnutrition in Africa. We want to tackle the education gap. We want to remove, avoid, capture greenhouse gas emissions, for example. So this is the broad classification metric. And so to dig in below that, the impact management projects come up with these 5 dimensions of impact: the what, who, how much, contribution, and risk. And I'm not suggesting you necessarily need to do a full page of this in your presentation, in your pitch, etc. But if you can assess your venture using these dimensions and then work this into your pitch, just weave it through your materials, your technical analysis, etc., you'll make it much easier for impact orientated investors to digest exactly what positive impact you're making. And then in the process, help them to decide, is this the most impactful investment we can make, which often they're trying to do. And so by making that easy for them, you're demonstrating why you're an impactful investment. So at a really high level, what's the outcome that occurs? The who is who experiences this outcome. For example, looking at the page before, malnutrition in Africa, the who are people in Africa who may be suffering from malnutrition. The how much is saying, well, how much nutrition, how much is the additional daily calorie intake, for example, that we're providing? And contribution is the question of, well, how much of this change would have happened anyway? And therefore, how much more of a solution are we providing? So, for example, let's say there are already a number of UN programs getting food out there. What additional impact would you have had that wouldn't have happened otherwise because of market changes, policy changes, scientific changes, etc.? And then the risk, and this can be quite a complex one, what is the unexpected impact? What is the risk that this doesn't happen? Are there any unintended consequences, etc.? Are there known consequences, which are kind of trade-offs and compromises? And that's the fifth dimension of risk. Now, I was going to go into even more detail there. You can see there's plenty in there, but I'm going to skip through here to say, what does this not look like in a pitch and what does this look like in a pitch? What I see too often is this, as I put here, the world has a big problem. We want to make the world a better place. And we're a sustainable company that makes that happen by selling widgets or whatever that is. They're very vague. And often, to be frank, they're at risk of greenwashing. They're just trying to, they see sustainability, clean tech, climate tech, build back better, the just transition, etc., as an opportunity. They see it as a trend. They see it as a big global phenomenon, and they're trying to jump on that bandwagon. They're doing a service which is clearly nothing related to climate. Let's say it's something like, oh, we're a telephone exchange, we're a search engine, whatever, blah, blah, blah. If people use our stuff, they can find environmental solutions, which is a bit tangential. That's a bit of a jump in the logic. And so too many companies either aren't making impact and so make vague statements like this, or the ones that are making an impact are still making statements like this. And so it's difficult at first pass to really grapple to that. And so as the investor, you then got to really tease it out of them, which when they've got a scarce amount of time and the investment process is competitive, is obviously a downside. You want to make it as easy as possible for the investor, whoever that is, an angel, an institutional professional investor, to understand the positive impact that your venture is making. And so what does it look like? Well, I think we need to say the world has a specific problem. The world generates too much plastic waste, which enters the ocean. X tons enter every year. We want to make the world a better place by reducing the amount of plastic that goes into the ocean to benefit coastal communities and marine life, for example. We do X, whatever that is, recycling, ocean cleanup has boats, blah, 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 which is X% better or delivers Y outcome, which results in this improvement, and being really specific, like X tons of plastic waste captured every year, X number of calories delivered to malnutritious people in Africa, which is a 20% improvement in their calorie intake, for example. And so if you can be really specific with this, then it's going to go a long way to help investors to really understand you as a business. Now, I've stayed at the really high level here. There's obviously a lot of work that needs to be done inside your organization to actually appraise what this is, the life cycle analysis, for example, understanding what are some of the unintended consequences, doing longitudinal studies to understand, can get my words out there, what's that impact over time. And obviously for some startups, that'd be difficult to show, but you want to start doing that work. So there's a lot of work to be done underneath this so we can make these statements in good confidence. But my intention for this stream is just to encourage you to look into that. So if you can go onto the Impact Management Project website, please check it out. Alternatively, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me, send me a message. Equally, it's one of the things I cover in my mastermind, where we help to really bring that impact out into pitches, into the company strategy, into the ethos, so that it's easier not only for investors, but also for customers. So if you've got any questions, please, please, please do not hesitate to get in touch. If you've liked this video and you're watching on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. And I'm going to keep these coming so that we can keep informing your fundraising and make you guys successful by giving you the capital you need to get to market. Thanks for watching, and we'll speak